My name is Ryan Terrell. I'm the vice chair of the NH-GOP. That's the state Republican Party. Also, for context, I serve on the State Board of Education representing District 5 since 2020. So we'll talk about a number of issues as it relates to Republicans and conservatives and what it means for libertarians and free staters and all that kind of good stuff. There's a lot of themes that I want to pull on the strings of that I've heard throughout the conversation today. So before I even get started in the meat of our conversation, I think you should probably introduce yourself.
My name is Brittany Ping. I'm a free stater. I'm an early mover. I think I'm right around 1,000 mark. So I've been here since 2012 with my husband, Matthew. He is a Dem. He's a 5x5, as we call, a 4x4, sorry. And I'm a 4x4 Republican. That means that I pull Republican ballots for every election, every time. So my husband is a very consistent Dem voter. I'm a very consistent Republican voter. So they don't know what to do with us. I've literally had the crazy person in Manchester write articles like, when did she even become a Republican? When I was 18, my friend. I was the chair of the Manchester Republican Committee, so the authorized party, in 2020, which was a fun year. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was really great. And then in 2023, when we just made some big wins in Manchester and shifting the tide for the first time in 34 years. I love to talk about it. I am absolutely a liberty Republican. I'm fiscally conservative. That's all I actually care about. I would like to spend less money. That's always been my walking point. And when we were recruiting, and I paired with the team that was recruiting for 2023 in Manchester, that was it. That was the sticking point. That's what people wanted to hear, along with some quality of life issues. So,
I also want to bring up that I'm not a native Granite Stater. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I moved here in 2011 after receiving an academic scholarship to SNHU. I graduated in 2014 and I stuck around. I loved New Hampshire. At that point, I'd already invested in hiking boots, which I can't use back home. And I'd already fallen in love with the snow. And so I declared that I would become a Granite Stater full time. So I actually want to pull on a few themes, and you and I can just go back and forth that I've heard throughout the day, and also some themes that I want to bring to the forefront in my position and offer y'all for discussion. I actually agree with Tammy. I don't see the utility in having a libertarian party in New Hampshire, and it's not that I don't want people to freely associate and create parties whenever they want to. It's simply a utilitarian focus, whereas we have two major parties in this country, and Republicans and Democrats, and in our state, it's so thin of a majority that, just like Tammy said, every time we lose votes to Republicans, in fact, Democrats gain votes. And I want to scope out from our state legislature to give more context to the fight that we're having within our state legislature. And I also want to impart my own politics so y'all know exactly who you're talking to. I believe that we're at a major inflection point in society, and more importantly in America. We're figuring out how our political systems and institutions are going to move forward, and we have a shift of generational taste for how those institutions are going to move forward. We see that in the changing legislature. We see that across our Congress. We see that in things that used to go one way that are now going another, and that's being permeated throughout every single piece of our society. That means education, healthcare, monetary systems, and so on. And so our state is a microcosm of that larger change, and it means that people are looking for alternative or new ways to solve perennial issues that we've been talking about in matters of public policy and public governance. I think that everything that we're discussing here today about the differences between libertarians, Republicans, how we can work together, has to fit in that context, because we're on shifting sands that I believe over the next couple of years, as we work out how we want these systems to work, over the next decade, how we choose over the next few years to work them out will be what's in place for a while. So it's very important for us to get this correct, I believe. I think there's a symbiotic relationship between libertarians, free staters, and Republicans. I think we all need each other because, as Tammy said, if you run as a Democrat, not only will you be fundamentally opposed to the platform that Democrats offer, we can talk about that, but Democrats are not kind to free staters. They are not kind to anybody who loves any version of liberty. And in fact, they are the progressive leftist bloc that we all should be worried about. The Democrat Party, in no nixing of our terms, is the biggest threat to liberty, freedom, and prosperity in this country that I've ever seen. Because Democrats are leftist. That's just what it is. The young ones are leftist. The center folks heed to the leftist, and the whole party is controlled by leftist ideology.
They don't want to be voted out.
They don't want to be voted out. And the reality is that leftist ideology has permeated the Democrat Party so deeply that it's almost like if you ask a fish how's the water, and they ask you what is water. So they quite literally do not understand that there's alternative ways that the government does not have to get into your business. They do not see a world in which free people can do what they freely want to. They want state-run, stank-sanction, top-down, authoritarian style government in every single version of your life possible. And that's very important for you to understand, because sometimes I heard a speaker here, I believe it was Representative Erica Layton. She said, I don't want to cast each other as these cartoon villains across the aisle. I'm going to tell you, some of these people are cartoon villains from across the aisle.
That's the official position of the NH-GOP. Actually, if you've met our Chairman Ager, he's absolutely willing and ready to tell you, like, it is. There's two sides. And ultimately, like, I am a very individualistic, and I agree with that. Like, I want to view an individual as an individual. But here's the thing. The left does not view you as an individual. They view you as the cartoon character of Orange Man Bad. Mm-hmm. Right? And they're going to paint that picture. They're going to paint you as a conservative. I don't care where you identify on that conservative spectrum, as somebody who's against women. Don't ask them to define what a woman is, but you are anti-woman. Mm-hmm. Okay? And really, just case in point, Porcupine Real Estate, which, obviously, full disclosure, I have a vested interest. It's my business, one of my businesses. Porcupine Real Estate, we did this I'm on the list. They legitimately, former Senator Deitch created a list of anti-democratic extremists. You are an extremist and a terrorist. I'm on that list. If you're on the list, we have a copy of the list if you want to see who's on the list.
I wasn't.
You can get one that says...
I have an
I'm flying under the radar somehow.
You can get one that says Liberty Ninja, but they legitimately are you're on it because you're a free stater. You're on it because the NHLA gave you a good reference. You're on it because Yal endorsed you. It's ridiculous, okay? They literally have painted you as a caricature, as an anti-democratic terrorist. This is what it is. I am absolutely, so Ryan's like this beautiful, high level. And I'm like, 65% of our state, and that's a rough number, is truly independent. They are purple. That is why our legislature looks the way it does. It is almost 200. We have a tiny majority. It's 202 to 198 right now.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. That's why our state looks the way it does. Max Abramson was the highest libertarian vote, so he got 5%, which got ballot access in 2018. Mm-hmm. Max was a defective Republican. He was the only pro-life candidate for governor. So Governor Sununu still won that election by a large margin, but Max Abramson got, I think, 8% of the vote overall.
Just under 10, yeah.
But it was because of that really conservative stance, not because he was this excellent, like Jeremy Kauffman. I'm not saying anything. I love Jeremy Kauffman. Don't get me wrong. Or
some purist. He's not a purist.
No, he wasn't a purist libertarian. He just offered that he was the only pro-life governor candidate. So when you say the LP will have success, you have to look at the history behind it. And honestly, like, I've knocked so many doors, and in Manchester, it's a so our local elections are not, your party's not next to your name. They want to know. Right? The public wants to know. They might not ever identify as a party. There's 65% that staunchly will be undeclared, and they will remain undeclared. And you see it in the federal and the ones where they have to pull a ballot and then they sign back up as an undeclared as they walk out the door. But they want to know what your party is. But then they're going to have a conversation with you. You're going to get 10% on either side that shut the door because they say, I'm a Democrat. They yelled at my child one time. It's fine. She's 7. She's 7, by the way. She's still a little PTSD about the old man that came and yelled at her. Or they say, I'm a Republican. Shut the door. I've never had that because I'm a Republican. But, when we talk about the New Hampshire GOP being the party for liberty, it's also same thing. Just like our state legislature is 400, right? You go knock on your 5,000 doors, over and over again, and you have an opportunity to represent them. The way you could become a member of the MRC, this is our bylaws, is you attend 4 meetings in a year or you pay $50 in January. Guess what? You're now a part of the Republican Party through the MRC. And then if you're like me and you notice no one stepped up to the plate to replace Tammy, and I was like, I think I'm running for vice chair. I think I'm going to be the chair again. You just do it. And so I didn't set out for political ambition. Like, I love my city. I love this state. I have the gift of gab, as it were, And, I like the peopling that you get to do in it. So it's not even like I'm this crazy high power political. I want to talk to you about trash in the city of Manchester. We're not Donald Trump. We're not, we don't have any federal delegation that's Republican, unfortunately.
You're bringing up some interesting topics because you're right, where if you are right of center in any way, you're painted as a caricature by the left. It just is what it is. I've been called racist more times from white Americans than anybody in my life, just trying to do what's right for children on the State Board of Education. I've been on the State Board of Education since 2020. It's a governor-nominated position, executive confirmed position. There's 7 State Board of Education members in our state, and they vote on rules that the jail car that y'all heard about earlier actually follows through that affects our public schools. We also approve all of the curriculum that goes into the public university system in New Hampshire. We also approve, deny, and audit all of the charter schools in New Hampshire. So in the 4 years that I've been on the State Board of Education, I've personally approved 32 plus charter schools or helped to renew their charters for 5 years. So all of the Learn Everywhere programs as a part of the Education Freedom accounts where you can get high school credits outside of the classroom. Those programs are approved at the State Board of Education. All of the charter schools that are coming to try to put their initiatives forward, they come to the State Board of Education. If you have a problem as a parent or a student and you need it adjudicated and you have not gotten the correct response from your school district that suffices what you would like, you appeal that decision to the State Board of Education. So it's a very active board as far as when we talk about education. And I've been nothing but attacked from the left by simply trying to make sure that students have access to high performance education as opposed to just creating job programs for adults. You may have seen, if you read the Union Leader a week ago, I wrote an article that talked about how it's not that we don't have enough money in education. We have historic levels of money and funding into education. It's that the funds are misallocated and they're misinvested. It's malinvestments. So we have most of the taxpayer burdens going towards paying executive administrators within a school district. And
sometimes they can have 2. They have no right to have 2.
We have some districts that have 3 or 4. Ugh. But the most pernicious part about all of this is actually a more core point, and it's an ideological point that I think you all can appreciate. In our schools, that is where this culture war that you may be hearing is ruminating, and it's ruminating for generations, because the reality is leftists have complete control of the school systems, and if we do not continue to create alternative pathways for learning, the young people going throughout these traditional school systems always come out leftists unless they have a strong family background to counteract them. I see it when I hear university professors that certify new teachers talk about teachers needing to be equity, justice, diversity, and inclusion advocates just by nature of being an elementary school teacher. So I'm saying all of this because we don't have an hour to get into the nuanced details, but I'm saying all of this because the Democrat Party, leftist, progressives, they are deeply interwoven into every institution that your family and I and you and everybody in this room will need. So now the decision becomes, do you mobilize and try to just tear down those institutions as a whole, or do you build alternative institutions atop those and simply remove yourself along with advocating for the state?
That's what we did as Free Staters.
I'm a big version of the second. I do not believe that if your children go to a traditional public school, you have any access to improve that situation. I do believe that you can support a charter school. I do believe that you can use your education freedom dollars to move to somewhere that you do agree with. And so there is a libertarian to progressive pipeline ideology that I think we need to address and be honest with. Because now when we talk about liberty wins, the question to most normal people that have no idea what the Free State Project is, no idea what porcupines mean, no idea what any of this stuff is, have never heard of minarchianism or Austrian economics, have never heard of Mises, have no idea what human action is, never wrote Rothbard. That's most people, okay? And so when you talk to the normal person about these issues, what they hear is you're just trying to get rid of their public school. What they hear is you just want to burn down the things that they already trust.
What about my roads?
What about the roads? Who's going to pay for this?
Pick up the trash?
And so if there's anything that I can deliver as actionable to y'all, I would say get somebody who you at least agree with them 75, 80%. I know that's a whatever percentage. but we have to get more available and better communicators to communicate your points to actually win some offices and take positions of power. Because at the end of the day, getting together on one of these great forums over a weekend only does so much, because at the end of the day, you need a governor's signature to move forward legislation. You need senators to move forward what you believe in. And that is what the business of the NH-GOP is about. My business as vice chair is finding new people, younger people, and people who are anybody except Democrats. I can work with you. If you are anybody except a leftist, I can work with you. And I know Brittany's the same way.
And part of it is too, like, it's also educating. So we're doing this on the recruitment side for NH-GOP right now for the 2024 year, is educating what these positions are and what you actually have an impact for. Because it's also, when you go door to door and you say, I'm going to, here's like aldermen, like, they're like, we support Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, there's one in Manchester, but like, that's it. That's the only thing it has to do with anything the Board of Mayor and Aldermen is going to do. We had the Palestine, anyway, I'm so hyper political. We've had the Palestinian protesters coming to all of our Board of Mayor and Aldermen meetings the past few months to do a ceasefire resolution. And we saw it successful. So Durham passed it. And Portsmouth, believe it or not, was the first city, and they said, it was a lawyer, right? And he said, it is not germane to city business, and therefore we will never vote on this. And so that led the path. Mind you, a really crazy liberal board, 10-2 voted, it is not germane. And so Manchester was able to vote, it's not germane. And so it's also reminding people that the left is telling you that reproductive rights are on every ballot, and that,
democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Yeah. Yes.
We get to be the smart people that say, like, here's what the alderman actually does. Like, they were all upset because one of the aldermen was getting heated about a piece of city property going for sale through the request for proposal bid. And there was a literal fight between the guy who wanted to be the chair and the Republican that became the chair of the board, right? And I don't want to be derogatory. I was confused about their gender. 20-year-olds are going, it's so crazy that he's getting upset about this and not about genocide. And I was like, this is what he was elected to do, though.
Right. That's his position.
This is actually germane to this board. This has been 3 years that this city property has been sitting rotting because we think it's important for pickleball. Like, the reason this board exists. So that's also part of it as well. And what we're working on for the 2024 is to educate people what an NH state rep can do. Like, we saw the wonderful panel and what they did do. But what they can do, what a senator can do, versus maybe our liberty ideologies going like, I'm going to come and remove all taxes. Maybe we can in another 12 years, but like right now it's just chipping away and getting more money back to the state. Mark, you have a question? Yeah, don't label me, bro.
Don't put me on a list.
The argument as to whether or not they should be Democrats or Republicans and libertarians has been going on for a very long time, and I feel like we're much closer to a definitive answer on that now. But I also feel like Republicans have a lot of momentum against Democrats in the last 5 years that they simply haven't had before. And one of the reasons is that many of the Democrat activists, the ones that aren't employed taking taxes, the ones that are just passionate about bathroom to use or whatever their big thing is, those people have been leaving for other states where it's easier, like Vermont. Sorry,
Massachusetts, yeah.
Your liberal paradise is 35 miles away, the farthest point in New Hampshire. Is there a way to increase this sort of attrition amongst the Democratic Party? Because an activist is worth 10,000 voters.
Yeah, we just make them continue to cry. Like, like when we say that you shouldn't mutilate the genitals of a minor, like your parental consent does not actually like do consent. Like, just like, I wouldn't, we don't have a law that says you can't that you can tattoo a minor with parental consent. You can't do a 6-year-old, you can't do a 12-year-old. You make them cry and you make them feel unsafe. We put the first, here's the dirty secret. And it's one of the reasons people love New Hampshire. I'm pro-life. I'm unabashedly pro-life. But it was a dirty secret. We had no abortion. We had no legislation on abortion. Okay? We had zero. There was nothing. It was a dirty secret. Nobody talked about it. We mind you, we've never had a strong majority Republicans. This is not like a thing that the House had. And even when the House had, they couldn't get something through. And so they said, let's do common sense. We had a common sense, very popular Republican governor. What can we actually get passed? So we have a third trimester with medical necessity. Okay, 80% of Americans agree with what New Hampshire has in place. And the Republican Party, the Republican governor has said, we did it. We did a thing that's never been done, and they cannot handle it. As a matter of fact, they said, oh, it's a ban. And then they tried to codify the exact same language as a protection. You just make them cry. You just make them feel unsafe. And so they say, I can't get an abortion in New Hampshire. Not true. You are absolutely able to get one. There's no data on it because they never have provided it back. That's why the executive council, same thing, we're making them cry. We're making them feel unsafe. Planned Parenthood has to report their financial data to the state. Yes. Yes, they do.
I think what Brittany is saying is certainly a tactic that I like, which is just calling people out for what they are. If you look at my NH-GOP vice chair Twitter, you can see that I'm very direct with calling people the names that I believe.
Open-air drug markets.
Open-air drug markets.
Those are homeless encampments. That's
all
not.
that kind of stuff.
Open-air drug markets.
But to answer your question more directly about can we start to inspire more attrition among Democrats and leftists, I actually don't believe that we can. Because just like everybody else, New Hampshire is a shining light on the northeast of the whole country. And I believe that people of all political stripes are moving here for obvious reasons. It's a beautiful, great place to live. New Hampshire is absolutely amazing, and the quality of life here is just simply above anywhere else I've ever lived. I travel most of the time for my professional career. I founded a hair care company that we sell to salon professionals across the country. We make and manufacture everything here in the United States. Actually, in Derry, New Hampshire, we have our manufacturing facility. And so I travel quite a bit. I've already spent 37 nights in a hotel room in this first quarter, so I've already spent a month on the road. And when I see the conditions of how other people are living, I see why people are moving to New Hampshire. So we won't stop people of any political stripe from moving here. I think it's more incumbent upon us to simply make it difficult to take bad positions and not go unchecked. And I think that that's where the Libertarian Party, the NHLA, and Free Staters really play an important role, because for a long time, I've only been involved with the state party apparatus and state politics since 2020. So when you talk about how rapidly you can start to have political power or influence, I woke up one day, I saw that the vice chair position was open. I ran for it and I won. And I beat some other really great Republicans who had been involved in the party for a while. But it's because, I think it's because, along with me being just painfully attractive.
I was about to say, really handsome.
It's definitely the hair.
But aside from that, I also think it's because people are looking for ways to move forward our party. And the reality is, not only is New Hampshire the shining light for freedom and liberty in New England, I believe the Republican Party is the most relevant, functional party in New England. On this side of the country, we're the only ones actually trying to protect any liberty and doing so by any measurable
I'm going
way.
to double down on my statement. When they say, I don't want to live in that kind of town, I say, wonderful. All right. Chair Joe Kelly-Levasseur, I would like to make sure that this is a priority for you.
I agree.
Tell me what you don't want in your town as, the far lefty, and I'm like, let's do it.
Let's build that.
Let's do that. I will make you good on your promise. The guy behind you had a question, though, Mark. I know.
We have a race for governor coming up, and from our perspective, we're looking around, it doesn't look good. What is the liberty for?
So there are 4 cannabis bills in the House right now. They all are different. I personally, I want to see cannabis reform. I don't know what that looks like. What's probably going to get passed in New Hampshire is going to look like the liquor. I mean, Tony Lekas could probably tell us a little bit more. But you're right. We're going to have to wait for attrition. You're going to have to wait for the old guard who's been supported by police unions and the sheriff's unions, and they're terrified. They can't even imagine a world when we have, I have videos of people on Elm Street in downtown Manchester just cooking dope, but we can't imagine selling weed. It's not like it's been recreated, in 30 states. They can't put it in their heads. And so I think we're going to see the liquor style approved. It's not wonderful. I don't necessarily agree with it, but do I want to see it passed? Yeah. Or we're going to have to wait 20 to 30 more years. And I don't think that that's right for New Hampshire to wait 20 to 30 more years for attrition to come.
And to add to that, just to be completely candid and straightforward with your answer. Neither one of our Republican governors support legalization of marijuana.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate for a strategic position for us to take more seats in this state because it holds us back. I personally support the legalization of marijuana simply because I see it as a lesser dangerous substance than some of the more legal substances. I also just don't believe that illegalizing substances has any impact on people who want to use them actually using them. And in fact, there's a correlation between making substances illegal and the potency of the substance, because now criminals actually need to marginalize and make it lower and higher potency to be able to traffic and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of implications around marijuana legalization. Some of it, frankly, is just that we have one of the oldest populations in the country, and there's a branding around marijuana, weed, devil lettuce, whatever you want to call it, that they simply do
Let's
not
just
understand.
call it devil's lettuce. Maybe it'll get through the house.
They simply do not understand that the THC products that we have today, modern THC products, full spectrum THC products, are not only used by a broad swath of our public, including professionals, but there's a deep misunderstanding that we still live in the age that stoners are lazy people, and they have this really big contention around the state smelling like marijuana. And so until we can really make the public feel comfortable that responsible THC users can navigate this landscape, on the Republican side, unfortunately, I don't see the support for vast marijuana legalization. And it's really because some of those more cultural, social impacts. I want to add one more note because I know y'all want to add in. I think the biggest sticking point that libertarians, conservatives, free staters get at is the social issues. And I have not heard that being discussed today, so I simply want to offer who you're talking to in my political belief. The reason why I believe that I am and I relate as a social conservative is because I believe that there are some social issues that need to be regulated. Because I do not believe that we can be a functioning society that has a shared culture and value system if we do not have a shared social climate. And right now, we live in a society that we have elected officials and people that control your paychecks and have power over you that believe that biological men can squat down and have children.
You just invited yourself to so many social contract
we
conversations
have,
for the rest of this. Do you know what you
no,
just walked yourself into?
Seriously, we have
I'm
a
just
whole
giving
relationship.
you a warning.
We have a social climate in this country right now that if you are 100% liberty, the question now becomes, is it a liberty position for a parent or a caretaker to allow their minor to cut off their genitals? Is it a liberty position? That's a debate. Because in one way, you could say parents and caretakers have the absolute liberty to govern their children how they want to, and the state has no right to get into that relationship. If you do take that liberty position, you're taking the position of a Democrat, which is saying that minors, if caretakers and parents want them to remove their organs for reasons that we can't understand, that's completely okay. As a conservative, as a social conservative, I think that that's absolutely abhorrent. And so that's the sticking point that I think us as a society and free-thinking people are trying to come to, which is how do we balance a liberty position with social issues? And I'm more than happy to continue to discuss.
I want to add one more piece to the cannabis thing. You're not going to get it from the governors. You're not going to get it from Congress. You're not going to get it from Trump, right? What you're going to do is the Senate. The Senate is your sticking point. So start focusing on interviewing and seeing objections to this with the New Hampshire Senate, because that's right. So the governor, let's say we get Ayotte or we get Morse, right? Please.
For those not from our state, we have 100 senators.
Yeah. No, we don't.
Sorry about that.
24.
24 senators.
24. So you're with a strong Senate support, or finding out what a strong Senate support would look like, or even finding out what the strong Senate objectives, objections to it are. That's going to be where I would focus, and then your House. But the House, we'll see what the House looks like with it's 4 bills, right? Are in right now playing around cannabis. It's your Senate. Huh? Well, of course they are. This is what they're going to do, because it's not going to get through the Senate. You already know you have a stone wall with the Senate, and the governor, he could surprise us all in the very end because he's not running again. He's not announced for anything else. Might sign something if it got through the House. But I would say for 2024, what's that? Yeah. But that would be my recommendation, is focus on the New Hampshire Senate for 2024. If you're saying the governor, we're getting nowhere, wonderful. Accept that. Get a strong enough Senate that the new governor can't ignore.
So one thing, look, I keep writing down things. I'm like, oh, and I want to say that. Oh, and I want to say that.
Can you tell that I want to keep our strengthening Senate? I would like it.
this is cannabis related, and I might get many times in New Hampshire we passed decriminalization bills.
It took a Republican governor
It took
8
a
times.
Republican governor to sign it. The Democrat governors all kept vetoing it. Mm-hmm. So their issue, like you're like, but this is your issue. I don't understand. So I'm going to say that's like Pat the Republican. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, said, what do we do? I mean, reality is we have Kelly Ayotte, we have Chuck Morse on the Republican side. Those are the two big names. You've got Joyce Craig on the Democrat side. Do not let that happen.
Please.
Just elect a dog. Elect this. Do not elect Joyce Craig. And then we have
Cindy
Warmington. Again, but not as bad as Joyce Craig. But when people ask me, well, I didn't like the way Kelly Ayotte voted when she was in the U.S. Senate, or I don't like the way Chuck Morse managed the Senate, and I don't like this. And I you know what I say? I do not care which Republican governor we elect. They could be the worst Republican ever.
Better than any Democrat.
And it is still better than the Democrat. Because all the hard work in the House and the Senate goes nowhere unless we elect 300 Republicans out of 400 so that we can override the governor's vetoes. Yeah. We passed right to work. We couldn't override the veto. We pass things, and if you do not have that governor, Sununu's not perfect. But you know what he does? He signs legislation that gets passed through the House and the Senate. He's vetoed very few things, and without that, I can't even fathom
what we would look like.
We would look like the rest of New England.
He vetoed a lot of bad things, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there my first term, 2018, 2019. The Dems had a big majority in the House and the Senate.
He vetoed 78 bills or something. Was it 90?
Yeah.
He took 99 bills.
Yeah.
Historic.
Yep.
Record by a lot. Two of the vetoes were overridden. Both the Liberty people wanted to override. And without that, this would be a very different state.
Right.
And one of them was, so New Hampshire, so also read the NH-GOP platform. We're voting on our platform again on April 13th. So date. And one of them is a consistent and fairly applied death penalty, right? It's in our thing. And that was one of the ones that got the veto was overridden because we do not have a consistently held death penalty policy in the state of New Hampshire. Cop killers can be killed.
That's it.
And that's it.
Those are the only lives that.
So that was a big one. What? Yeah, you got rid of it. Yeah.
But it's still in the platform.
It's still in the platform.
Yeah.
So, Mark, you had one question, and then Eric had a question.
Before we answer the questions, I just want to overlay with this. I heard a difference between politics and policy. We are the politics side.
Yes.
The Republican Party, if you're joining a party, you are joining the politics side.
It's the platform.
Which I'm arguing is equally as important because the politics side is what drives people. When you see illegal migrants committing crimes, when you see the problems at the gas pump, when people get up in arms, I don't want that to be the thing that mobilizes people. I wish we could live in a persuasion-based, fact-based world, but we don't. You need the politics. You need the political maneuvering to be able to win as well.
And the good news is, I'm the establishment, guys. Quite literally.
Same to me.
There's factions of the Republican Party that view me as the establishment that needs to be taken down.
See?
I'm not kidding. We're laughing, but it's real.
For 10 years, I've been saying this every time.
I've been called a deplorable. I've been called a racist. All of
Brittany's
it.
establishment, and I just look at Dan and go, #winning.
Yeah,
hashtag
you
winning.
had a question?
Yeah, speaking as a Liberty Republican in Maine, who is also viewed by some as a member of the establishment for some reason.
Yeah.
New Hampshire House of Representatives, first in the nation of a lower chamber to pass Defend the Guard.
Yes.
Amazing historical.
And the gubernatorial candidates are in support as well. I believe,
One.
I've seen that from
Morse for sure. I don't know if Ayotte
She hasn't
has
responded.
it. Okay.
She hasn't responded, no.
I'd love to see.
Well, there we go. We'll get that.
Pleasantly surprised by her. From your vantage point, I'm curious, especially with Morris, former Senate president. At least I don't know what he believes in his heart of heart, but he certainly seems to see it as a good wedge issue against Ayotte. From your perspective, what do you see as the prospects in the Senate?
Before Brittany answers, I hosted Derek Perlow on my X Space to do a X Space conversation about Defend the Guard way before any Republican even cared about Defend the Guard was. I don't know this as a fact, but I would like to say I pushed that conversation into our party, along with trying to get them to talk to SEIU as well. We have a lot of leeway that we need to make with new issues like this, and Defend the Guard is an obvious one. We have young men and women dying across seas that are being mobilized from a state military that just shouldn't be doing so. So I think that there's hope in the Senate because it's an obvious bill that is just obvious in our political philosophy that I think is actually very relevant in our political party as Republicans right now.
Do you think Sununu vetoes it if it gets there?
I personally don't have I'll just give you in just my own sense. I don't think so because I actually think Governor Sununu values the individual liberties and freedoms, and I do believe he is a constitutionalist. Like was mentioned, one of the first things he did was sign constitutional carry into law. And so I have to believe that a person who sees the value of constitutional carry and is going to block and nullify federal legislation from interrupting granted staters, I have to believe that defending the Guard is a part of that political ideology as well.
And he also is backing the Texas National Guard.
Correct.
As well. So we're seeing things from him. I do think that Sununu is also going to do the popular thing, right? And so I think it's the popularity in the Senate. The Senate is Republican majority. So I do think the popularity in the Senate will influence his decision to sign.
No, I don't know how much time, but I do want to just end off with I desperately want as many of y'all in this room and like-minded people to join our party because your efforts are wasted with the Democrats. And in fact, like Tammy mentioned, you will be politically exiled if you do join that party, because once you do, you kind of put a red flag on your back for us as well. We don't quite know where you are. And so if you are politically motivated, if you care about what's happening, please reach out to the NH-GOP or somebody related to the NH-GOP. We need y'all because at the end of the day, we are losing by attrition.
Yeah.
There are more Democrats. They're younger. They're moving here. And if we don't start to mobilize this party, then we're just going to be complaining because we'll be the rest like New England. I personally don't want
And
that.
a really easy way, if you're like, Brittany, I don't actually want to show up to these stupid meetings and I don't want to do this thing. If you want to be the laziest form of Republican, it's really easy. When the signups for the 2024 races happen, there's a space called delegate. Okay. So you run as a delegate. And hopefully some of these towns, it's really, it's contentious to run for delegate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So put your name in for delegate. If you are elected as a delegate on that ballot, you become a delegate to the New Hampshire State Republican State Committee. So you create yourself a vote in the New Hampshire Republican Party. Delegates are who are meeting on our platform on April 13th. And then delegates also get voted on. So like Manchester, we get 33 state committee members. State committee members get to vote on our chairs, our vice chair. They get to vote on our treasurer, our secretary, and our committee man and committee woman to the Republican National Caucus. So if you say, I want to be super lazy and only attend one meeting every other year, or I want to attend 3 meetings every 2 years, you first start as a delegate. You must be a registered Republican
Correct.
to run as a Republican.
As an independent in the state of New Hampshire is as if you're going to possibly run for anything, including something as simple as
A delegate, yeah.
you must be a Republican, so just go ahead and register as a Republican.
Correct.
There's never going to be a Democrat ballot you want to take anyway.
Agreed.
So,
Vermin Supreme. No, that's my husband.
Totally